The Flyin Lion says,
boys, hell is real.
2023 Supporter Shield champs.
So glad that I can be back with people who know that it's a Flyin Lion.
It shows how much we all love this club.
Yeah, just a fan of the sport, you know.
It's definitely tougher to be an academy player than it is a pro.
In this club, you don't play just for the club. You play for the club.
I'm here for the fans.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Thanks, everyone, for joining us.
What's going on, guys?
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Flyin Lion Podcast. We've got a guest with us who's making his debut on the podcast. You hear him, most match days on ESPN 1530, breaking down tactics, analyzing every facet of the match. He also stars in an Academy Award. He stars in the hit series of, the booth cam celebrations next to his longtime partner, Tommy G. Proud to welcome Kevin McCloskey to the podcast. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having us, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So been a while coming. We wanted to have you on for a while and glad we can kind of figure this out. But if you kind of want to touch on, just to begin with, I know, some people may or may not know your background as far as history in the game, not only as a player, but, coach as well, and then kind of administrative side. So if you kind of want to run people kind of through either, the experience across the pond, right? And what led to Cincinnati, and then kind of how you made Cincinnati home.
Okay. I'll try to give you the short version.
I know you're asking me to tell the whole story of my whole life here. Yeah.
It's 45 years condensed into 2 minutes, but no, yeah, I played soccer. I'm from Belfast, Ireland. So I played soccer, I played Gaelic football were the two main sports that I played. Started to focus more on soccer about 16. I think every 16-year-old wanted to play in England at the highest level. That didn't happen. I had some looks, had some trials, but ultimately I think education and soccer kind of drove me to come to this country. And so I was fortunate. Had a couple of scholarship offers back. This is 99, so I'm kind of aging myself just a little bit. But with that, I chose Rio Grande, which is in southeastern Ohio. It was an NAI school. A lot of history as far as being a successful program. They produced a lot of professionals throughout the years too. A lot of international kind of influence with the program too. So from the decision and going through that process, that fit, and it kind of spoke to me. I had some connections with some of the guys actually that were Irish that went a couple of years before I did. So that connection, again, kind of felt natural. I had a great coach, Scott Morrissey and Tony Daniels, that are still involved in soccer at the collegiate level that took a gamble, I guess, on me. And I think it worked out okay. So we were successful. The team was successful. I had a different route as far as playing, so I eventually played USL, but before that, I actually did my graduate assistantship at a program called Urbana University, which is up north. It's close to Dayton, Ohio. And so essentially that's where I started my coaching journey, unofficial coaching journey as an assistant GA. Was studying for my master's in education. And then at that time, I was still pretty fit. So there was a team that was announced in Cincinnati. I'm trying to get these dates right. I think it was probably 2020. Probably about 2003, 2004, I think the announcement came. And that was the Cincinnati Kings, and that was a USL team. And so, of course, I'm sure you guys are familiar. There's been a lot of USL, franchises and professional kind of ventures that have happened in the city, but none quite like what we have and experienced.
Yeah, they came and went. Yeah,
they came and went pretty quickly. But I had, I think, 4 years at USL, and it was a fantastic experience. Played with some guys that are still involved in soccer at the club level in town. And so with that, after 4 years, I was like, okay, from a living standpoint, it's going to be tough. I wasn't really, I felt very connected to this place, to Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky. And so I made a decision. I did want to kind of pursue, playing and traveling across the country and kind of chasing that USL dream. It's a tough one at that point in time. It's evolved and changed, obviously. And so I got into coaching more heavily. So I stopped playing, I think, professionally at 27. And so my first full-time job, or was actually part-time, led to full-time, was with Northern Kentucky University. And so I had a year and a half, I think, at NKU. At that time, they were actually Division II. And I think about 12 months or about a year into that, I got a call from a guy called Dave Shurik at Xavier, who was the head coach. Dave's actually worked for FCC, and he offered me the assistant at Xavier. And I had, I think, almost 5 years at Xavier, which was awesome. Fantastic school, loved the program. And then I switched across to soccer operations for youth soccer. And so I started at a group. It kind of went full circle back. It was Kings Academy at the time. 2013, we merged with Hammer FC, which is a local club, to create Kings Hammer. And I'm not going to bore you with the rest of the details, but 2013 to 2024, I was with Kings Hammer. So,
wow.
In total, from coaching to when I finished, I think it was 15 years with Kings Hammer, and just recently took a position with Soccer Village. And that's a group that I'd worked with for a long time. As president of Kings Hammer, or former president of Kings Hammer.
Very cool. I love the history there, and dating all the way back, to your time over the pond as well. I got to ask, because I don't think you touched on it. What position did you play?
I was an 8. So
okay.
I probably played up until I was 16, 17 as a 9. It was a decent goal scorer, but I just like dropping back and getting more involved in the attack. At times, I couldn't describe myself as a 10. It was probably maybe an 8+. But I enjoyed both sides of the ball, essentially defending and attacking. And from a college and USL professional standpoint, played most of my time at the 8. I think my last season got relegated to a 2. Not that there's anything wrong with right back, but it just became easier. That usually happens with the age 2.
That's not bad. Yeah, usually the midfielders seem to be like coaching mindset, right? Like I feel like for baseball, like they talk about like catchers, like usually because they get to see a lot of parts of the games, and then maybe like in soccer, right? Like you said, you're defending and you're attacking. So coaching was almost like, I guess, tactically like a natural fit, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
I think I agree 100%, Simon. I think I've been lucky. I think obviously just to evolve my player journey into the coaching piece, it's actually extended itself, I think, to the business realm too. And I think I have a passion for sport and business. And I think to be involved in sports business is really the perfect fit. I'm blessed and lucky that that's happened. But for me, business is almost the closest thing to sport, The key thing is, physically, I'm obviously not fit enough to play right now.
No men's leagues. No, yeah.
Yeah. I have. Yeah, I've actually come out of retirement, but, which I regret because I played a game last night and I still hurt. So, and then the broadcasting obviously keeps me super connected to the game too, which has been, another blessing.
Well, kind of touching on that, it would be a nice transition. Beginning days of FCC. Tell us how you first got approached about joining and how you got involved with the club.
So Tommy likes to tell a story. I think I was in Ireland at the time with my wife. So this is back in 2016. And I had a missed call from Jeff Birdie. It was about, I think, 10:30 p.m. Ireland time, so 5 hours ahead. And I listened to the voicemail, and he's with Tommy. He leaves me this message: "Hey, Kevin, I know you're in Ireland. I want to talk with you when you get back. There's a guy called Tommy G that's fantastic. He's a broadcaster. And when you guys get back, I want you to have lunch with him." And that's kind of how I said it. Now, the backstory as well: Jeff was involved with Kings Hammer up until about 2015. And so I worked with him. I was the executive director at the time and reported directly to Jeff. He was the board president. And so essentially I had a relationship prior to the FCC project for Jeff. Through that time, we had talked, he'd asked some feedback as far as with the Kings project, what happened, what was good, what was bad, what was indifferent. And so we kind of talked, through some of those things and provided some feedback. And I think I think at a point in time, he said, "Look, I want you to be involved in this," and to my knowledge, it wasn't going to be in broadcasting, but here we are, and I'm glad he made that call. So I got back to Ireland. I had lunch with Tommy. The meeting almost got cancelled because it was a snowy January day. What we saw the last six weeks was very kind of indicative of that. We met at Newport Pizza, which is very close to my house. And yeah, we just talked through it. And he said, hey, from Tommy's background, he obviously had covered basketball games, I think, with the ESPN. He had some experience with soccer with Akron. And just talking with him, obviously, you could see that he was a professional as far as the broadcasting piece. I would love and just energy for life in general, but with sport too. And really, from that first launch, we kind of hit it off. So it was awesome.
Yeah, what into the booth cam celebrations that we have now, right? That whole the whole thing. So
I have to keep him controlled sometimes because, well, one, he doesn't know his size and strength, right?
Oh, we could tell.
Like going in for those high fives, it hurts. I'm like, oh, okay.
It is.
And he comes like he brings the heat.
It is very funny. I feel like you're very stoic. And he's pushing you around over here.
I have to. If I don't, it would go crazy. But yeah, there was, and a lot of that's natural too. It's not staged. I mean, I'm a huge, obviously, sports fan, soccer fan, but I'm a huge FCC fan too. This club means so much to myself, my family. And so I think myself and Tommy both, we obviously try to be professional and try to be as objective and unbiased as possible, I think, with the coverage piece. Well, when those goals go in, it's hard.
Well, that's the thing is you're always a fan at heart to some extent, right? Whether it be for the team or just for the game in general. You see something awesome, you can't help but react the right way to it. Right. But going back to those first USL days, you're just starting off in the broadcast booth, right? You're next to Tommy G. How was that? Working out the kinks of maybe, chemistry or just being in USL in general, a newer club to the city. And so how was that like?
Great experience. I think, again, the great thing about this club is just, I think the moments we've been blessed with, right? Different chapters that have led us to today. And I think back just with those USL days very fondly. And I think, myself as a broadcaster, I think us as a broadcast team, and even the team in the franchise too, was in its infinite stages, right? And I think, the very first, we I've told the story before, we did a mock game. I think the team was playing against University of Dayton. Our producer was there. For some reason, we weren't filming it. It was just myself and Tommy and David Eisbrock. And so David was like, okay, set this up. He was talking us through it. He's like, Kevin, this is your first time broadcasting. I want you just to talk through the game. Right? So there's no camera. There's no recording devices. It's just myself and Tommy. And it felt so weird. It was the most unnatural thing I've ever went through. And we got through it, and Tommy's like, look, once the camera's on and everything, it'll feel more real. I'm like, okay, that's fine. The very first live, that red light came on. I was like, oh, what is this? But it was fun. And like I said, I think those days, just to build up the history and how I played a part in, essentially building the resume to be accepted or considered for MLS, I think was fantastic.
Yeah, no, that's pretty special, and how that relationship has kind of developed over the years too, and through thick and thin, good times, bad times as well. You got to tell us a little bit about the preparation, obviously from, like Sam said, the USL days to now on a whole different level, being in the MLS. What does that kind of look like from your side?
Yeah, I think we have great access with the coaches, and we always have, to be honest with you. Of course, some coaches are going to be more open. So I think from that standpoint, that helps our preparation. We go to practice, we watch the practice, the training sessions. You pick up these nuggets that if you were just watching games and just showing up to the booth, you're not going to get it. So as far as the access piece, the club has been great. Pat He's an all-star, I think, as far as patience with not just us, but I think the media. I think he does a great job of just managing that piece of it. The preparation itself, of course, over time, like this stage of the season, I've seen all our teams play. I've seen them train, not just the first team, the second team too. And so you kind of understand, okay, the greater squad. Of course, once you get into the team dynamic, you look at 11 that start, but who's competing for time. And so like the prep piece for me, I think I just make sure I understand who's available for the game, likely scenarios that might come up as far as changes, subs, who's in form, who's not in form. And of course, then the opponent, that's where the time. So depending, early stages is always tough in a season because the team hasn't played, the opponent hasn't played as many games. Preseason games are not available, so that's tough. And so I just watch kind of the opponent too. And honestly, I think about it like a coach as much as I can. It helps me just kind of conceptualize some things, looking at the difference in systems, the styles of play, and obviously like certain personnel that you think are going to step up and be difference makers on the day.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because I imagine, that does come into play, especially as, pre-match, but as you're watching the game too, right? Like that is, you can't help but think about it that way a little bit, with your background. And like you said, trying to foreshadow, okay, hey, I think this is what's going to happen here based off of this player's movement or the way, like you said, they've been playing. But at what point did you look over and see Tommy G's notes for the first time and go, oh my gosh, I'm not detailed enough? Or was there ever a thought of like,
that's
okay, I may not be ready for this?
Yeah, I think looking at Tommy's notes, and here's the thing too, like his position is so different from my position.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
His responsibility, he has to keep the broadcast going throughout, right? So you can't have quiet moments, and sometimes he talks too much, and I tell him that, like, Tommy, you need to stop talking for a minute. Let the game breathe. No. And the transition, honestly, I'm joking, but a little bit of tongue in cheek. But the transition from TV to radio too is also different, right? So I think his responsibility, he has to set it up as much as possible for the viewer. And a lot of the things that I talk about as I kind of prepare it's natural because one, I can't control what's going to happen in the game, so I have to react in some way. And two, and I think with the preparation piece is just making sure you understand the players involved. With the systems, again, I've just been lucky with experience with coaching. You can predict if a team's playing a 4-5-1, like, and they're a very defensive-minded team versus a team that's playing in a 4-3-3 that's very aggressive and presses high. So you can start to think about trends that would happen. And so once that happens, I just try to fill in as much color without, again, taking up too much airtime.
Yeah, I could see how, from your side of things, that's a little bit easier that way, but to also be able to kind of read the game because, if you know me, I like to analyze everything. And when Sam and I watch matches together, I'm like always in his ear talking. And he's like, dude, let it breathe a little bit the same way you are. Like, just watch it, just let it, develop. But, you touched on being kind of early on in the season, not really knowing, much coming in with preseason. We don't get to see a lot. We're only a few matches now into the season this year. What's kind of stood out for you with this season and FC Cincinnati so far?
I think that the biggest thing that stood out, I think the depth of this team is impressive. I think, of course, I think it's obvious that we want to have, additional goal scorers. And I think some will happen through just natural competition. I think the summertime probably presents another opportunity. And I can't speak, as far as the transfers and what's going to happen. I have no idea. But knowing this franchise and knowing this club, success is an expectation. And I think to be successful, you've obviously got to score goals. The competition from the squad itself, I think you look at midfield, and Sam, you talked about just midfield position and those players that are intelligent or they see the game differently. We have an abundance of talent within those central areas that personally I think is you can utilize that in different ways. You can have obviously rotation and competition. You can potentially tweak systems to try to have more central players in a system. Or you can utilize a player out of position too. And, we saw that last year, like Buka had played in wide positions, wing back positions, even higher up the field attacking positions too. So I think that's the biggest thing is the strength of the squad, and especially just, this is probably biased, the competition that we have in central positions, I think is so strong.
No, yeah, I was telling Ryan, I think FC Cincinnati might have one of the most underrated midfields in all of MLS. Just like you said, based off the depth. You get a guy last, transfer window with Samuel Giddey at the end there, and he starts in the playoffs for you over Obi, right? Who is one of the best defensive midfielders in the MLS. Yeah, I mean, as far as offseason moves, what are your kind of thoughts on maybe a move that mattered the most that maybe went a little quiet, or maybe just mattered most in general? It could be a departure, arrival. You can even take it back, like I said, to that July window if you'd want.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the squad here as you're asking. I think this is not like a shock. I think this is personally, I was just surprised with Ramirez coming in. Not that I was surprised that he came in. I was surprised when he came in, what he's brought to this team. I think I can tell that Pat's big on him just based on his comments and what he's kind of shared. But just the first game especially, I was impressed. The first home game against Atlanta, I was impressed. I think he's an intelligent player. He's different, very, very different. Like, he will stop the ball close. He'll draw pressure and accelerates. He's not a winger that just gets it and goes 100 miles an hour. So he understands.
Yeah, compared to our previous wingers, how would you compare him to the previous wingers?
He's different, very different. Yeah. I think, like I said, I think if you look at like a guy like Orshano that was fast, right, and gets up to speed pretty quickly and beats a guy off the dribble, Brian's not that. Brian at times kind of receives it. He'll kind of assess, and he understands pressure and space really well, right? So he'll draw a player in, understand that there's space behind, then he'll beat him, or he'll wait, and pass off. He sees the game. So from a vision standpoint, he's a little bit different than a wide player, if that makes sense. I think there's more to come as far as like his service and his delivery.
Right.
I've seen it a couple of times where he's looked and he switched the point of attack very quickly, or just that the through passes that he has. So he's more of a, I don't know, because this sounds demeaning to the other players. Like he has high intelligence, I think, for a wide player. And I think balance with like a guy like Ender Echenike on the other side, it's a good balance.
Well, to be fair, I don't know if we've had anybody with his pedigree in that position before, right? I mean, you talk about intelligence, right? He's got the pedigree and the trophies to back it up, whereas like the previous players, a little younger in their career with Barreal or Ashano, still kind of learning the position, if you will, as well.
Yeah, great point. I think both those players that you just mentioned, I think were projects at some stage, right? And I think we got the best out of those players, right? I think Pat pushed those players to different levels, and I think they repaid his faith. He certainly contributed to the attack, and obviously we're grateful for what they provided. But to your point, I think Brian's just a little bit different. He's at a different stage of his career, and he's just a different profile of player.
Yeah, Sam and I talked a lot, in our preseason warmups and everything, just in saying how important the wing, would be. Just we've seen it in the Shield winning year, how important it was. And then for this team, we saw when it maybe lacked at times last year. So this year, I think there's a good opportunity. Kind of transitioning, I guess, from that, in asking you what if this team's going to win a trophy, do you think it's wingback play that will kind of define that? Or what do you think helps to win the trophy the most, I guess?
Well, I talked about midfielder. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the competition at the back, right? And I think a guy like Miles Robinson, especially, I think he's going to be fantastic this season. So impressed with him. And I said this in Minnesota, like each season, he just looks better and better, right? So I think we've got a great player with him. We've got competition across the back line. But to answer your question, there's two things, right? I think obviously a solid back line and goalkeeping, which I think we have. And I touched on this point earlier. I think scoring goals, right? You've got to score goals. So again, I think that can come through relationship that will develop. Obviously, Kevin Denke, I think we can all agree that he's going to be the main guy.
Yeah.
And who fits with him, right? And that's the competition. There's good players that can come in and kind of contribute with him. And then the potential, again, not that I know this or I'm looking into a crystal ball, but if you could add another piece in the summer, I think we're in a position then to win and to challenge because, like I said, the depth of the squad is strong.
Yeah, I think Ryan and I were talking about that as well, like the back line and the attack coming into the season. We were kind of depth wise in both positions. It was like, oh, okay, we're not quite. Maybe doesn't look quite filled, especially up top, missing maybe like one more striker or one more, pure goal scorer. But yeah, it could definitely turn into something. Is there a certain competition that in your eyes, FC Cincinnati may have like the best chances to win a trophy? I know because coming into the season, right, I know it wasn't just us because we had to talk about it because other people were, but the whole narrative of like Pat Noonan has yet to win something other than the Supporter Shield, right? A playoff trophy, a tournament trophy, if you will. Is there any certain one that you're like, okay, like they could win this one?
Well, personally, I think winning the Supporter Shield, I think is more important, right? But again,
we're in that camp. We're in that camp, by the way. We are also in that camp.
Yeah. So I certainly don't judge Pat. I think he's fantastic. I think what he's done, not just Pat, I think Chris and his staff too. I think what they've done in a short time, like if you think about this too, like we were struggling.
Yeah.
Right?
Wooden spoon after wooden spoon. Yeah.
Yeah. And what those guys done. And of course, it takes that support from the ownership group too to make that work. But I think as far as to answer your question, look, the Supporter Shield, again, is fantastic. I'm impressed with that. Is that enough for the fans? You guys have got to answer that, right?
Yeah.
Of course, MLS Cup, I think, for the collective group, fans, staff, team, that's the focus. Other competitions, it'd be fantastic to have different trophies in your cabinet, but I think MLS Cup is the goal.
Yeah, it seems like it. And, just I love Pat's mindset of just try to win the game in front of you and then see kind of what happens, so put your head down, work it, and then you'll get good results, hopefully. But on a grander scheme, I guess if we look at all these big names coming into the league in the last few seasons, kind of building up to the World Cup now, how do you compare the direction of MLS compared to Europe or overseas now?
It's definitely progressing. I'm interested. I think some teams and clubs have pushed the boundaries with signings and DPs and who's qualified and who's not. I'm not going to touch on that because I don't want to get in trouble. But honestly, I think that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing because I think it just raises the bar. Of course, you have to have consistency and it has to be a level playing field as far as the fairness piece. So as long as that fair play piece is in place, I think there's ambitious ownership groups that want to invest, and ultimately that leads to better product on the field. How does it compare to Europe? I still think it's probably close to like a championship level, right. So the Premier League is the biggest league in the world. And I think the other key, it's great to get foreign players, I think, to come over here. I think the other key is trying to produce better homegrown players. Yeah. And I still think that has some time to kind of evolve and develop. I still don't think we're there. I think it reflects just on the national team just a bit. And so the professional league, contributes to that. But I also think the youth system has to be fixed for sure. We have to get the right people in the right places, make decisions for the good of the game.
Do you think so from a U.S. soccer perspective, then, like, do you think, I mean, we're playing him possibly this weekend with like a guy like Josh Sargent, right? Who's a guy who might be a World Cup, U.S. men's national team roster type striker. Do you think him coming back into MLS when he's pretty in his prime? He's a big name in the U.S. Came up obviously through like the U.S. system. Do you think that makes an impact at all as far as like helping with the inside development, like you said, from within?
There's pros and cons. I think time will tell. I think with Josh, but I agree with you. I think he's in his prime, right? But I think and I'm not qualified to answer this question, but I think, when I look at the U.S. national team, there has to be a balance of players that are helping this league, this domestic league.
Yeah.
But there's also has to be players that are playing at the very highest level.
Yeah.
And that's the tough part, right? It's this league has to continue to develop to attract the top talent. And I think, money behind TV, I think probably drives that for the most part. But in the short term, from a national team perspective, you still have to have players that are competing at that very highest level.
Yeah, no, and we kind of seen it around the league now too, just with, at Red Bulls, I think RSL, a lot of young players that are coming through, and, maybe that's the timing and leading up to the World Cup, but just being able to kind of instill confidence in those young players, obviously you coaching and seeing those guys at such a young age play at a high level. But then to be able to retain them, I think is what Sam and I have talked about. They've been going abroad historically at that young age and not really developing here. So I guess to your point, it is more maybe to see that development through our systems first at that high level, maybe.
I think so. I think, and they're making strides. I think some of the academy programs, I think as far as the MLS clubs, have developed good players. I think they're starting to invest more in identification. I think just the broader landscape itself in the youth space is just a bit convoluted. I think it needs a reset. I think it's going to happen here pretty soon, but it definitely needs a reset for sure. I also think you look at Josh Sargent, and a player that kind of comes to mind, Donovan, when he came back, was almost in his prime, right?
Yeah.
Or close to that. And I think he helped. So again, I think it's a balance of homegrown talent, the top talent going and playing and getting that experience, and a combination of those things coming together.
Oh yeah, to your point with the World Cup, obviously we're a couple months away now, which is crazy. I think what I saw the graphic the other day was like MLS put out 100 days, right? So
Yeah,
it's getting there. Yeah, almost less than triple digits. So any takes on the World Cup as far as like a dream matchup that maybe you personally would like to see?
The dream matchup for me is Ireland getting into the World Cup first and foremost, which they have 2 playoff games still.
Of the 48 then.
Yeah. Well, we got to get there first. Listen, the first step is Ireland get into it. If they get into it, anything is possible. No, I'm joking. I think France, I think, will be strong this year. I think Argentina again will be there, I think, close. The other side of the group, love to see Brazil, go far again. We'll see. I don't think they're quite there as far as just what they've been in past years or past competitions. But to me, I think France, I think this is their year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean the quality I feel like is there. I can't wait to see the U.S. fan reaction, right, to all of these matches. Obviously, we've seen like, the prices are too high. Nobody's gonna go, and we'll see how that goes. I mean, the people are gonna go, right? It's not gonna stop a lot of people from going.
I think you'll see a ticket price drop too. I think on the secondary market.
Yeah.
I think closer to the games, and it depends on the games, right? Like, it's fine that everyone's bought all these tickets, and but there's going to be some games they're just not as attractive, and you'll have a chance to buy those, and the big highlight spotlight games, it's going to be tough. But I think that would be the same in any country.
Yeah, that's true. No, that's a good point. We wanted to ask you, because we asked Tommy this and we've asked a couple other people as well, but favorite away stadium atmosphere, or if you want to talk about like press booth, maybe. I think Tommy said down in Mexico, Sam. Do you say Monterrey?
Yeah, he said Tigres was really cool.
Tigres,
and obviously
that was fantastic. As far as the experience, I think that has been our best. Just so much passion from the fans and old school stadium too. Not sure if it meets like health and safety code, but I think I almost fell down the steps once or twice. But that was one heck of an experience. I think domestically, I think LAFC is a pretty cool stadium. I think good environment too. Minnesota is good. I think those are. I mean, again, FCC is the best stadium. From everything that I've seen, TQL it's just a different level as far as detail, as far as experience. But I would say LAFC and Minnesota. I think those are the two kind of closest for me.
Yeah, I think Tommy was. He also shot. I think he shouted out like maybe the Sounders.
Portland, I think he said.
Yeah, Portland too.
Went out there last year.
Yeah.
I think so.
Portland's different. It was old baseball stadium, so it's unique. And I mean, and that's a cool thing too. Some of these stadiums, especially the ones that are not soccer specific, they have their own kind of little spin, or style, I guess. And for that's kind of special too, just to see that.
I don't know if we asked Tommy, but like from your perspective, I just want to know. So, I guess broadcasting at a place like Yankee Stadium or Citi Field, right?
Very tough. The first year we went to Yankee Stadium, I can't remember what it was. They had it was one of the special nights. I'm not sure if it was like the celebration of the military or whatever it was, but they had a special night. It was a different uniform, and the color of the uniform was different. And so Yankee Stadium, we're back like before the corner of the field. You're back, 50 yards, maybe.
Wow!
Right. So you're 50 yards from the corner of the field, and obviously in those central areas, an additional 50, 60 yards. You could not see the players. That was very tough. And like Citi Field's a great stadium, ballpark, but it's not conducive for soccer.
Does DC have a similar vantage point? I think I remember you guys kind of putting out as well. They have a weird look, I think, to their.
Well, the hardest part about DC is that the sun. So whoever designed the stadium didn't consider the sun. So the sun is actually this way, looking into your eyes. So again, tough to see your monitor when you're trying to like blur out the sun. But DC itself, I mean, it's got a bad rap, but it's a fine stadium.
Yeah, we always find it fascinating to hear all these like away stadium stories, right? The atmospheres. Like Ryan touched on, we asked Carter Chapley about like going down to the Dominican, like him being like the only person in the stands, right? Like we saw like him with a bunch of just random fans, maybe 20 people in the crowd, right? So like stuff like that we find hilarious.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing too. I think we've been lucky to be part of that experience, to witness just what's the different city, the culture within that city, obviously the fan base, everyone's a little bit different, the style of play from the team too, the stadium setup. So yeah, that's a unique piece, and I feel lucky that we have that chance to experience that.
Kevin, I don't think we got to ask Tommy this, Sam, but maybe you can fill us in what you think. The 10-year reunion and everything that happened last year in the celebration, what was like for you to kind of see all of that come together and former players and everything?
It was very special. I think I have good connections with those guys, the original guys. I work with a couple of them, stay in contact, and so I think for the club to take the time to celebrate those guys was special. Again, not a lot of clubs do things like that. The players themselves were super appreciative of that. And I think just at night in the atmosphere, I don't know if you guys had a chance to kind of stick around and watch that alumni game.
Cool.
But it was good. It was good. It was fun too. So it was a blast.
Yeah, get to see somebody in the athletic training staff pull a hammy. I think that's always
that's it. That's what happens.
Yeah.
once you pass like 30, 35, it's you're at risk.
Kevin, did you ask to join the game? Were you interested in playing in that one?
I know my limits at this point. Yeah.
But yeah. All right. Well, so I mean, obviously we touched on a lot of stuff here. Kevin, if you kind of just wrapping up here, if you want to let the people know, where they can listen to you, where they can follow you, either on social media or, 1530, wherever you want to send people.
Yeah, no, very active both on Instagram and on X, I almost called it Twitter. You can follow me there. You can search, I think it's at Kloski08 is my handle. I'm sure if you guys share the video, if you could tag my social, that'd be great. But yeah, very active in that space. And I think just from a community standpoint, obviously want to try to help give back to the game as much as possible too. So any type of initiatives that to help the city and to help youth, I'm all about that.
Awesome. Well, once again, thanks for joining us, and we'll hope to have you on here again probably soon.
Great. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kevin.